So for today's video, we're going to be learning how to simplify fractions. And what it means to simplify a fraction, or to put a fraction in simplest terms, is just to make an equivalent fraction with the smallest numbers possible. So for example, 4/8, when you simplify that, that's 1/2. And to kind of think about what that means is, if you look at this chocolate bar that I drew, obviously there are 4/8 shaded, but would you tell somebody that you're gonna eat 4/8 of this chocolate bar, or would you tell them that you ate half of it? So I'm going to be teaching you how to simplify. So for this first part of the video, we're going to be doing something called finding the greatest common factor. And the greatest common factor will be the number that you eventually divide your fraction on top and bottom by. But for this first part of the video, it's just going to be finding greatest common factor. So to do that, you would take the fraction. So let's do the fraction 4/8. So that's asking us, what is the greatest common factor of 4 and 8? So to do that, you're going to write both of the numbers in their own little space, and you're going to kind of make like a T-chart. So something like this. And when you do that, we're going to list out all of the factors of the numbers up top. So a factor is all of the numbers that multiply together that give you this, or all of the numbers whose answers, when multiplied together, give you this. So I always just start at the number 1, and I ask myself, 1 times what gives me 4? Well, 1 times 4 gives me 4. And I just write it like that, 1, 4. So 1 times 4 is 4. Then I just go down the list. So the next number would be 2. 2 times what gives me 4? Well, 2 times 2. Normally, when your numbers repeat, there's no other factor that would work, but you could also ask yourself, the next one would be 3. 3 times what gives me 4? Nothing, so 3 does not work. And then the next number would be 4, which we already have on our T-chart, so we do not need to rewrite that. So that is all of the factors of 4. So now we're going to go over to 8. What are the factors of 8? Well, let's start. 1 times 8 is 8. Does 2 work? 2 times 4 gives you 8. So 2 times 4 gives you 8. Okay? Could try your next one. 3. 3 times 8. Well, that does not work, so we're not going to add 3. And then our next number that I would say is 4, and 4 is already on our T-chart, so we're done. So now what you've done is you've found the factors of both 4 and 8. So now we need to find the greatest common factor. And what that means is we want to find the greatest, or the biggest number that they have in common. So the biggest number that they share. So they both have 1s, they both have 2s, and they both have 4s. Well, which number is the biggest one that they share? 4. So the greatest common factor of 4 and 8 is 4. All right, let's do another one. I'm going to do it with a little bit bigger of numbers. Let's do the fraction 10/12. So we're going to write 10 and 12. We're going to make little T-charts, just like that. So first, we're going to start with the factors of 10. So 1 times 10 gives me 10. 2 times 5 gives me 10. 3 times nothing gives me 10. 4 times nothing gives me 10. And then I'd be back at 5. So that's your factors of 10. For your factors of 12, we have 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4, 5 would not work, and then, 6 is already on there. So now we've found the factors of 10 and 12. So now, what is the greatest common factor? What is the biggest number that they share? Well, first you could pick out all the numbers that they share. They both share ones and they both share twos. So the biggest number that they share is 2. So the greatest common factor of 10 and 12 is 2. All right, let's do one more, and I am going to make the numbers pretty big. So what if we had the greatest common factor of 24 and 36? So this is going to be really important that you know your multiplication facts, but you also can use the rules of divisibility. And the rules of divisibility are just rules that you can use that kind of help you do this multiplication and division quicker. So like if both numbers are even, they can always divide by 2. So in this case, 24 and 36 are both even, so they both will divide by 2. But for the sake of this video, let's do the greatest common factor. So let's list out all the factors of 24. So we have 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6, and 5 will not work. So those are all of your factors of 24. And as you can see, the gap in between, so like 1 and 24, the gap closes. 2 times 12, 3 times 8. And what I mean by the gap closes is I mean like the numbers get closer together as they get like smaller. All right, so the factors of 36. We have 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, 5 would not work, and then 6 times 6. So here is this. If you're unsure, so like if you did not know 36, like if 2 is a factor of 36, you would have to divide. So you would just do 36 divided by 2. So you could like work that out to the side if you needed to, and or divide it however that you do. And then you would see that 18 is a factor. If you divide it out and you get a remainder, that is not a factor. But again, just knowing your multiplication facts here is going to be really, really, really important. As the numbers do get bigger, though, I do understand. So now, what is the greatest common factor? What is the biggest number that they share? Well, they share 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 6, 12. So the greatest common factor is 12. When the numbers get really big, if you want to do the smaller number first, and then when you get to the bigger number, once the numbers are bigger than this one, you can stop. Okay, so that's like when it gets in like the 90s and stuff, but we shouldn't have too many like that. So that is how you find the greatest common factor. So if you need to pause this video and go back, I would definitely recommend it. And I would definitely be practicing this because this is a skill that definitely follows you into 6th grade. So I would make sure that I know how to do it. So again, this was how you find the greatest common factor. So for this part of the video, I'm going to show you how to actually simplify the fractions after you've found the greatest common factor. So for this first example, I went ahead and already did the greatest common factor, but all I did was the fraction is 4/6 and we need to simplify it, or we need to try to simplify it. So you should always try to simplify your fractions, even if you think it doesn't simplify, just to be safe. Not all fractions need to be simplified. So 4/6. Well, 4 and 6, the factor, they did have factors that they share, and it's 2. So since it is a number that's bigger than 1, because if the only number they have in common is 1, it's just going to simplify to the same thing. You're going to divide top and bottom by that greatest common factor. So the number that you circled. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So 4/6 simplified is 2/3. Okay, the second one that we did, that 10/12. So 10/12 simplified. So this is where those rules of divisibility kind of come in. So if you're like, I don't know if that simplifies or not, well, ask yourself, are both of these even numbers? Yes. So they both can definitely divide by 2. So if you're like, I don't want to list out the factors, well, you know they both can divide by 2 because they're both even numbers. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 5/6. Now, sometimes this works and this will simplify. However, sometimes the number may need simplified again, and all that means is that there was a bigger, greater common factor than 2. So rules of divisibility and finding the greatest common factor, you kind of can choose which one you do, but for now I would focus on finding the greatest common factor because that's easiest for us because we're working on our multiplication facts. A fraction is simplified also, just another thing, if the numerator and denominator are one number away from each other. So like 5 and 6, we need one more to make it a whole, that's simplified. If the number has a 1 on top, meaning it's like a unit fraction, like 1/6, that's already simplified. All right, so what if there's one like 21/25? And you're like, I don't know. Well, you need to find the greatest common factor and then we'll see. So to do that, we're gonna write out 21 and make a T-chart, 25 and make a T-chart. Okay, so 21, we have 1 times 21. 2 times nothing gives me 21. 3 times 7, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. Okay, so there's your factors of 21. For your factors of 25, we have 1 times 25. And then we have 2 doesn't work, 3 doesn't work, 4 doesn't work, 5 times 5. Okay, so if you get something like this and you're like, Miss Howard, the only number that they share is 1, if the only number they share is 1, then this fraction is already in its simplest terms. Okay, so the biggest takeaway about simplifying fractions is just whatever you do to the top, you have to do to the bottom. And it's very important that you do that, because if not, you're not following the rules of simplifying and your answer will be wrong. So pause the video here if you need to go back and redo simplifying fractions, and definitely start practicing doing this. All right, this last video is going to be putting it all together. It's going to be multiplying fractions together and then simplifying them. So if we have the problem 3/4 times 4/5, we are going to, step 1, multiply our numerators. 3 times 4. 3 times 4 is 12. Step 2, multiply your denominators. 4 times 5. 4 times 5 is 20. And then step 3 is to simplify if needed. Well, to simplify, we need to find the greatest common factor of 12 and 20. So we're going to write 12, T-chart, 20, T-chart. So just like this. And now we're going to find the factors of 12. So 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4, 5 will not work. And then the factors of 20. 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 3, 4 times 5, and then the next number would be 5, so we do not need to go any further. All right, so we've got our factors of 12 and our factors of 20. Which one is the greatest common factor, the biggest number that they share? It is 4. Now that we have the greatest common factor, we're going to go back up to our fraction and we're going to divide top and bottom both by 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 20 divided by 4 is 5. So your simplified fraction is 3/5. Okay, let's do one more. Let's do 5/7 times 6/8. All right, so step 1, multiply your numerators. 5 times 6 is 30. Step 2, multiply your denominators. 7 times 8. I know 7 and 8s are hard, but 56. Step 3, simplify if needed. So to simplify, we're going to find the greatest common factor of 30 and 56. Well, for 30, 1 times 30, 2 times 15. And if you're like, how did you know it was 15? Another rule of divisibility is if it ends in a 0, it can divide by 2, because technically 0, meaning like the placeholders 10, 20, 30, those are even numbers, so it can divide by 2. 3 times 10, 4, 5 times 6. Perfect. And then the factors of 56. We've got 1 and 56. I know 2 works because 56 is even, but I am going to have to divide that out because I don't know that one off the top of my head. So let me see. Okay, 28. 3. I think 3 works too. So again, these ones I just have to do like little division problems out to the side. I'm thinking 3 works because since 56 ends in a 6, 3 is a factor of 6. So that's why I'm thinking that it works. So I'm going to try it. I was incorrect. Does not work. Perfect. 4 should work because 2 worked. Most of the even numbers will work. No. I take that back. 4 does, no. I don't know. Let me see. 4 does work. 14. 4 times 14. 5 will not work because it does not end in a 5 or a 0. Rules of divisibility, 5. 6 will not work. And 7 times 8. Perfect. So we have found the factors, and the biggest number that they share is, I can't look at this upside down. This one looks like it's just 2. So the greatest common factor is 2. So we're just going to divide top and bottom. 30 divided by 2 is 15. 56 divided by 2 is 28. Now, this does look awfully big, so if you're like, okay, I don't know if that simplifies again, you can go in and find the factors of 15 and 28 and see if there's one that they share other than 1, but this is actually simplified. So, 15 28ths. So this is just putting it all together. So if you're like, I cannot multiply these and simplify, you need to go back and you need to figure out what part you're getting confused on. Is it finding the greatest common factor, or is it actually doing the simplifying? But at this point, that is putting it all together. So that is how you completely multiply fractions.